Hello, Work Positive community, and welcome to this month's Work Positive Culture Live Experience. I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett, and I have the privilege of hosting these each month with you. So thanks for being present. I do have a special guest with me today, whom we'll meet in just a moment. Really delighted for you to join this one in particular. Of course, I say that every month, right? As the Work Positive community looks at creating a positive work cultures that grow people profits. That's our general theme. It's always our takeaway for you here. I want to give a special welcome because we continue to see people joining us for the first time over and over and over as we do these. So thanks to all of you who are joining for the very first time. If this is your first time, be sure to stay until the very end because I've got 2 free gifts for you, and that's the only way you can get one of them is to stay to the end. So this month we are looking at yet another challenge that we as people leaders face, and this month we're looking at one of something that we all know we should do, but is so difficult to do in the fast pace of life today and work, and that is creating a continuous learning positive work culture. Today's conversation comes from this little book that's my latest bestseller. We're very, very blessed that it hit number 1 in 3 Amazon categories yesterday and continues there today and in all HR categories, by the way, on Amazon. This is Learn at Work. And as you know, I like to use acronyms so that I remember things and it helps you remember things too. Learn at Work. And the subtitle is The Race to Develop Talent. Now, why did I choose that as our metaphor for this book? Because things are so fast today and it seems like we're all racing to get it done. The calendar's packed and then interruptions happen and 16 things pile up while we're working on one task. And so it's very, very easy for talent development to fall by the way. So in using that metaphor, the race to develop talent, I decided that I needed to consult with somebody smarter than me about racing, who knows more about racing than I do. So I'm very, very pleased to have Eric Coombs of the Nor Group, Alcova Mortgage, joining me on this live stream today because he was my consultant. Again, the race to develop talent, and that meant I didn't know enough about racing. So Eric helped me understand racing better, specifically NASCAR racing. And just in case you couldn't tell, if this is your first time, I am from the South in the U.S., so it's not your imagination. Eric serves today as branch partner with Alcova Mortgage, the Nor Group, but for 13 years prior, not immediately prior, but for 13 years prior, he worked with Petty Enterprises. Now, if you know anything about NASCAR at all, that Petty Enterprises is a home of the king of NASCAR, Richard Petty. And Eric was actually the head driving instructor for the entire company. He's trained close to 70 drivers nationwide for Petty Enterprises. But the thing that I love about Eric is this dude's famous. Now, you may not have known you saw him because he was a stunt double, but he was also a consultant in the movie Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell and Herbie's Love Bug, which had Lindsay Lohan in it. He was a stunt double and consultant for commercials from some really popular household names like Interstate Batteries and Lowe's, the Home Depot, Gillette, right? His most challenging, they told me, his most challenging role was that working with Garth Brooks and Huey Lewis in a music video. Eric, tell me why that was the most challenging. Because, by the way, Garth Brooks has friends in low places, so I'm assuming you're one of them, right? Is that right?
Absolutely. And thanks again for the opportunity to have me here today. And what a blast it was putting this book together. But yeah, what made that so challenging was the star power. And, Huey Lewis and Garth Brooks were heroes of mine. But to have to pass them in a high-speed race car while they were just standing on the track, that gets the nerves going just a little bit.
Oh man! So you told me that Garth was a little concerned that a tire might blow.
Yeah, there was. It took us 2.5 days to film that video, and for a day and a half, he did not want to do the shot that mattered. And,
He didn't want to do it. What, did he not trust you, dude?
and being a country music fan, it was really cool because I got to meet the director, producer of his music videos, who have done all of his music videos.
Oh, wow.
And he set us down in a room, which was super cool to just sit in a room with Garth and Huey and this producer. And he said, "Hey, man, without this shot, this is going to be a cheesy music video." He goes, "We need Eric to pass you so we can computer generate the rest of the cars in." He goes, "But if we don't have that one car," he goes, "I can't do my job." And Garth looked at me and said, "Are you good at what you do?" And I said, "I'd like to think so." And
I have been up
"All
till now.
he said, "Let's do it." And we filmed that thing in Atlanta, Georgia, about 104 degrees, and that was one of the hottest times that I've ever been in a race car.
Oh, wow. So obviously Garth Brooks is still alive today. So a tire did not blow and you did not take him out, right?
That's right. Yeah, everything went as planned, and unfortunately, the music video wasn't that popular, but we had a blast making it. It was a great experience.
That's great. So also Will Ferrell, who was Ricky Bobby on Talladega Nights, and anybody that knows anything about NASCAR racing loves the movie Talladega Nights, especially if you're in your 30s or 40s today. Did you get to meet Will Ferrell?
Yes, I did get to meet him one time. There was a time that he showed up at the track, and before we started filming on that day, I was actually able to give him a ride, just like we did the rest of our customers. So we loaded him in the race car and gave him 3 high-speed laps so he could see what this was really all about. And
wow.
His reaction was very similar to what you would see in the movies.
Yeah. I loved him in Talladega Nights, but I got to tell you, I watch Elf every year at Christmas time. That's just like my super favorite of his. Wow. Well, you've worked with a lot of incredible people, which makes you incredible, of course. And I just want to thank you for helping me understand NASCAR racing well enough. Some of the more intimate key strategies to that, because this little book is a lot better because we flesh those out. And I'm going to talk about some of those metaphor applications today in ways that can help us understand better how to create a talent development network that and culture really that helps us grow people and profits in our companies. The A in learn is for accelerate authenticity. So to keep it real and to be authentic, I want you to know Work Positive Community. I have the privilege of working with Eric and his business partner, Stephen Knorr, who are parts of the Knorr Group and Alcova Mortgage, and they are clients of mine. So, and I think Annalisa is putting up the URL right now in the comments so that if you want to do business with them, because you guys do business in a bunch of states. I know you're based in North Carolina, not too far from what I consider the epicenter of NASCAR there at Mooresville, but you guys are in North Carolina, but you can do business in states all over the country, right?
Oh yeah, we go all over, specifically the Southeast, but we've done deals in Texas and Tennessee, and yeah, there's multiple states.
Okay. All right. So that URL will show up in the comments at some point during this. I just want to thank you again, man. It was a real thrill to do this with you, and I appreciate it. And I mean, I get to work with somebody that stood next to or sat in the same room with Garth Brooks and drove Will Ferrell around track and didn't kill either of them. So, I mean, that was didn't crash them either. That was pretty cool.
Yes, it's a memory I'll hang on to forever.
Oh, I know it is. Well, man, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for being on live with me today, and my best to your wife and daughter. I appreciate you, buddy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you soon. And Eric's actually going to jump over to LinkedIn now, and he'll be making some comments during our time together here. So that's pretty cool. I always like to give credit where credit's due. So shout out to Eric Coombs and the Knorr Group of Alcova Mortgage. So as I mentioned a moment ago on this little book, LEARN, L-E-A-R-N is an acronym. I always like to use those because it helps me remember frameworks better. So let me give you the overview of what LEARN Learn stands for, and then we'll dive into both as we always do. First of all, the L in Learn is for learn fast. We're going to talk today about how to speed up talent development. The E is for energy flows. Culture powers talent development. So obviously it takes a lot of horsepower to keep a car going fast around the track. So we'll talk about the energy flow in your culture. A is for, as I mentioned a moment ago, accelerates authenticity. We want to go faster, but we want to make sure we're going faster in the right direction. So we'll talk about how you can do that in your work culture. The R in Learn is for reverse fear to feed forward, not feedback, but feed forward. I refer to that as a culture in which we can make new mistakes faster. We make new mistakes faster. And with the high pace of change today, as we talked about a couple months ago, change at work, right? It's necessary to make new mistakes faster if you want to stay competitive, if you want to be in the top 5 finishers. The N in Learn is need for lead. And that did not come from a NASCAR movie. It came from the very first Top Gun. I have a need for speed. But this is a need for lead. Here we're going to talk about center leaders. And center leaders are really important in helping how you can create a culture, a work positive culture, where you can help these center leaders grow on the edge. And that's important too. So we're going to discuss each of these today, along with some insights from selected experts that I interviewed on the Work Positive podcast, all of whom generously contributed to this little book. And of course, its success, as I mentioned a moment ago. And I'll tell you more about how you can get your free copy. It's number 1 in 3 different Amazon categories right now as we're sharing together live. Now, for each of these strategies, LEARN, I'm also going to give you receive a tactic. So this is not theoretical fluff. This is strategy that drives tactics. That is things you can do better today. I refer to them as a do one thing, or a DOT, D-O-T, do one thing challenge. So I'll give you one of those for each of these, something that can be a key takeaway for you. And I'll tell you at the end in the comments, I'm going to ask you, so as you're listening, be sure to make notes here, which one of these, LEARN, is a key takeaway for you and a tactic that you're going to try starting next week. It's one thing to be on a live stream or listen to the recording of a live stream, but it's another to actually change your behavior. And we're all about changing behavior, because improving behavior indicates when real learning takes place. By the way, these dots are small, very specific actions. They create high impact, immediate impact. They're gleaned in large part from the final question I always ask my guests in the Work Positive podcast, and that is, what's one thing we, the Work Positive community, can do starting today to create a positive work culture? Their insights woven together with my 40 plus years of experience and research will save you precious seconds on the race to develop talent. So let's jump in. You ready to start your engine and go racing to develop talent? All right, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Can you hear them revving up now? One of the persons that I got to interview on the Work Positive podcast has had a significant impact in your life and on mine, and that's Steve Cadigan. Steve was LinkedIn's very first Chief Human Resources Officer. And so here we are on LinkedIn live streaming, and some of the people who make this technology possible, I'll bet, were hired by Steve Cadigan. Steve really represents the best of what I think of as the L in Learn, and that is learn fast, speed up talent development. And this is a transformational strategy for most people that Steve shares it with, and certainly all the people that I share it with also. So let's hear Steve from the Work Positive podcast describe how we learn fast and speed up talent development. Here's Steve.
In a world that's changing really quickly, we're going to have to really start building a new talent strategy for people's capacity to really learn quickly, and our capacity to fuel that learning so that we continue to have an edge in a market that's changing, and we can be more adaptable, more agile. If you believe your industry is going to change, if you believe your company's going to need to change, and you're going to believe your job's going to change, and in HR, we know this. What's the shelf life of the job description being accurate? About 5 minutes. let's
That may be
hire,
optimistic.
let's hire for learning velocity. Let's appreciate that in the next 5 to 10 years, I think 50% of our hiring decisions is going to be based on what someone can learn, not what someone knows.
Wow, did you hear that? That seismic shift from hiring for what you know to what you can learn and how fast you can learn it. I think that's one of the most significant transformations in how you think about both attraction of top talent and talent development today. It's no longer about finding people who can do the job as it exists today. It's about finding people who can grow into whatever the job becomes tomorrow. If I just say AI, besides breaking out in cold sweats because you're a people leader, right? And you're wondering if they're coming for your job. Well, besides just knowing that culture is being influenced so much by AI today, the ability to learn fast is really important. Now, here's what I know that's expanding your mind even as we talk about it, but here's what keeps me up at night. Gartner did this survey. They found that 70% of employees have yet to master the skills they need for their current jobs. 70% aren't keeping up with the current skills the job demands today. 80% lack the skills they'll need for their future roles. See why it keeps me up at night? That's a massive gap. We have got to do more and better with talent development today. And just think about it. We're already spending billions on learning and development, and yet the skills gap keeps widening. Something's got to change. Talent LMS research also revealed something troubling about the gap between what we executives think we're doing in creating a talent development culture and what the employees say is really happening in their comments about skills gap. So 96% of we executives believe that the organization's exhibiting a growth mindset. That is, talent development's on track, things are going well. 96% of executives believe that. 45% of employees agree. Do you hear the disconnect? But do the math between 96% and 45%. Leaders think they're building learning cultures. Employees go, you're not. That gap between executive perception and employee reality really bothers me. Does that bother you too? That big gap? Go into your comments and drop a yes if that bothers you too. A gap between 96%, the people in charge think we're doing well with a talent development culture, and 45% of employees say, not working out. Drop a yes in the comments there if that bothers you nearly as much as it does me. Okay, so what are we to do about that? What's the solution? This is where Eric helped me out immensely. He taught me about the communication triangle in NASCAR. In NASCAR racing, there's a communication triangle, and it focuses on, of course, the abilities of three different people because it's a triangle, right? The crew chief is one, the driver is second, and the spotter is third. It depends on their ability to share real-time information about what's happening on the track in that moment while preparing to adjust to changing conditions. The winning teams learn fast. You see, here's what's happening. The driver is relaying the car's current response to changing track conditions via the radio headset in his helmet. Okay. Is the car too loose? That is, when he accelerates out of a turn, the rear of the car kind of moves around. Is the car too tight? That is, he can't go fast enough to remain competitive. Or is the car just right? He's driving faster and things are going. I call that the Goldilocks position, right? So the driver is constantly relaying that information to the crew chief. The crew chief is hearing that information that's relayed. He's taking notes. He is preparing for the next pit stop. Now, you never know when that next pit stop is going to happen because somebody could wreck or, whatever, or you could get to go racing until you start to run out of fuel and you need to come in. But the crew chief is making notes and preparing adjustments to the car at the next pit stop. Those are based on previous testing, and we're going to talk more about that in just a moment and how that occurs to know how the car drives best under certain conditions. But there are things he's listening to the driver describe, like, and deciding we're going to adjust the track bar this much, or we're going to put less tire pressure in the right rear tire, so we're going to drop it to X pounds. Any other variables that he thinks. Now, there's a third person besides the crew chief and the driver who's participating in this communication triangle. He's called the spotter. The spotter sits way up high, and he's in a perch where you can see the entire track. In NASCAR parlance, they refer to the spotter as the eyes in the sky. He's radioing to the driver data that's only available from his perspective. You see, you don't want the driver looking in his rearview mirror, because every time he looks in his rearview mirror, he slows down, right? Slowing down does not win races. So we want eyes forward, foot in the floor, right? Hands on the wheel, moving forward the whole time. The spotter lets the driver know what's going on behind him. He lets him know when he's clear of cars that are behind him and there's a gap and he can pass a car in front of him. Spotter also alerts the driver to how many car lengths there are between him and the car that's right behind him. And what that's doing is telling the driver how fast he and that car right behind him drove the last lap, because obviously if that car passes him, he's now spot down and it's harder to get back up into the clean air in the front. So this is real-time data that lets the driver know I'm getting faster or I'm slowing down. So here you've got this incredible communication triangle, if you will, between the driver, the crew chief, and the spotter. And that's how the team learns fast in real time. And it's fast learning that wins races. So how do you apply the communication triangle to your work culture and the race to develop talent? Well, let's think of your employees as your drivers. They're on the work track. They're driving sales, widget manufacturing, whatever else it takes to make the company go round, right? Then let's think of the crew chief, and I'm going to tease this out more in just a moment. The crew chief is your leader. The leader is the one who listens to all the different data points and wisely clarifies the best direction forward, so the organization celebrates in the winner's circle when this race concludes. Now, who are the spotters? What do you say we think of the spotters as your customers or clients? Because they're the ones who can see the entire track. They can see far more than the driver or the crew chief, right? The leader or the employees. They see all the various teams who are competing to win their business, and the extent to which the employees and the leaders form a partnership to collaborate with the customers about what they see and want to win, the solution to their problem, is the extent to which the company wins. The clients are the company's eyes in the sky as to where the competition is, who else are you considering doing business with, and what they're driving towards. So you learn your place in the race from your customers and clients. They see what you can't, their perspective, and your quick responses to customer data is what wins races. And you're winning not only your race as a company, because we want you sustainable, we want to grow people and profits, but also the customers, because they're getting their problem solved by you and their relationship with you. So when the leader and the employees communicate well with the customers and the clients, the race to develop talent is won. Grow people and you grow profits. Your customers spot the winning that comes from learning fast, and they join your team. They say, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you help me in this way? So you've constantly got customer data coming from your spotters or the eyes in the sky, right? Who doesn't want to celebrate in the winner's circle with that kind of relationship, right? So let me give you your learn fast. The L in learn is for learn fast. Let me give you your do one thing, your dot challenge here. I want you to go to 3 team members this week. Okay. Go to 3 team members this week and ask them, what's one skill you'd love to develop this year to serve better? Go to 3 team members this week and just ask them that question. What's one skill you'd love to develop this year to serve better? And then please be quiet after you ask the question and listen, really listen. Don't jump into solution mode. Don't explain, well, I can't do that, that's too difficult, or we can't afford that right now. Don't do any of that. Just listen and take notes. For you see, when you as a people leader help team members know their growth matters to you and the growth of the company, they naturally bring more of themselves to the work. It's like, instead of looking in the rearview mirror as the drivers, they're looking right out front. That's when they learn fast. So the L in learn is for learn fast, speed up talent development. So you got the first part of the race to develop talent and how you can win. The E in learn is for energy flows. Culture powers talent development. I know you have, so let me just ask you anyway. Ever walked into a room and immediately felt the energy shift? Some people just have that effect on a room dramatically, right? They walk into the room and you feel the energy go zing, it's more energy. Other people raise the energy in a room by leaving the room, right? Some people leave a room and the energy goes up. They are what I like to call Eeyore vampires, right? We human beings affect each other in that kind of way. I mean, maybe it's a less obvious part of culture, but it is a very real part of culture. If you've ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift, go in and put a yes in the comments there. Just drop a yes in if you felt the energy shift in a room before when you moved. Energy flows, definitely. And culture is the primary conduit of that energy flowing. My friend Chip Higgins, who lives in the Nashville, Tennessee area, spent 40 years in banking. He may be my favorite banker, and he lasted in banking for 40 years. He primarily served small businesses during that time, and he wrote a book in which he applies the laws of physics to business. And so physics and business becomes Bizics, and that's the title of his book, The Bizics Way. Chip shared with me on his episode of the Work Positive podcast about how energy flows through culture and its relationship to talent development. So let's hear Chip describe how energy flows in a culture.
The culture part of it, to me, really comes when you think about, okay, I'm personally on fire for this idea.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get that to everybody? And you realize, like, the power grid in a company is the culture. I mean, is what carries that energy across. And you don't need a very
Yeah, those small breakages happen a lot, right? Think of culture as the power grid that fuels learn at work talent development. Energy flows freely when the culture powers up and people learn from each other, ideas spark new ideas, growth becomes contagious both for people and profits. But when the culture powers down and it breaks, then the whole system goes dark, right? And that's catastrophic. Within our companies, that happens. I mean, right now on the island of Cuba, right? That's happening. And so we see a lot of devastation and people having to do without power on that island. Same thing happens in your company. In my experience, most organizations have more breaks in their power grid, i.e. their culture, than they realize. The flow of energy is so vital to a work positive culture, and it's built on a learn at work type framework. Now, let's apply this to the race to develop talent, specifically NASCAR racing. The engine builder has one job and only one job, and that is to maximize power. Ironically, at least I found this to be ironic, the engine builder rarely goes to the track. He really goes more as a spectator and does anything because all of his work is done ahead of time. He simply turns the engine over, and then the engine adjustments belong back to that communication triangle of the crew chief, the driver, and the spotter. There's one primary engine adjustment that they talk about in the communication triangle, and that is the fuel mixture. The air fuel mixture must match what's going on in that driving experience on the track that day. Is the air fuel mixture too lean or too rich or just right? Now, what does that mean? Too lean, and the car won't get up the RPMs to get ahead in the straightaway anytime it needs it. It needs more fuel to burn hotter. If it's too rich, you've got more fuel than you've got air, and combination isn't strong enough to come out of those turns after slowing down, so the car's underpowered. Now, how do we determine if it's too lean, too rich, or just right? We examine the spark plugs. You see what we're doing here? Energy flows, spark plugs. The spark plugs are the epicenter of this energy flow process because they're the ones that bring the energy to the air fuel mixture, much as your culture brings, right, energy into your talent development culture. Here's how you tell, Eric told me, if the spark plugs are black with soot from the combustion, that's an indication that the fuel mixture requires adjusting so that the car runs hot enough to burn off that carbon. So you want clean spark plugs because it's burning clean. And that's how you can tell the air fuel mixture is just right. Energy flow from these spark plugs determines how much power the car has through that air fuel mixture. And that's a vital part of winning the checkered flag out on the course, right? So here's how I want you to think of your work culture, your work positive culture. It's the spark plug. It's a set of spark plugs that are literally igniting the air fuel mixture of your talent development. So think of it as the air fuel mixture is the needs of your talent to grow, the learning velocity Steve Cadigan's talking about, right? And you who are providing them opportunities to grow. And culture is that epicenter where the sparks ignite and the combustion goes and the whole company is powered. The energy flows through that culture, interacting with what it is that fuels your team members. So the question for you today is, how's your culture's fuel mixture? Is it too lean, too rich, you're lacking power, or is it just right and at full power? Now that's for you to decide and for you to assess, and we've got a way to help you assess that, and we'll talk about that. That's one of the free gifts at the end, right? So let me ask you a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. You just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, strengths, and personalized next steps. Get your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now. So the E in learn is for energy flows, culture, powers, talent development. Here's your energy flows, do one thing challenge. Before your next team meeting, I want you to check in with each person, give them a scale of 1 to 10 and say, where's your energy today, right now in this moment? It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just where they are. And then ask them, what would move you up 1 point? What would move your energy up 1 point? And I want you to, after you ask those 2 questions, I want you to watch what happens when you start treating energy as a resource to be cultivated among your people, not just a resource to be consumed. It's a small shift, but it signals to your team, hey, I care about you and what's going on with you and the way your energy is right now. That care turbocharges, if you will, the exponential energy flow that, as Chip Higgins tells us in the Bizix way, squares to create momentum that powers your culture to win the race for talent development. So the L in learn is for learn fast, speed up talent development. The E in learn is for energy flows, culture, powers, talent development. So let's move on to the A in learn. And the A in learn is for accelerate authenticity. Yes, we want to go faster so we win the race to develop talent. It's imperative we go faster in the best direction or in the right direction. In NASCAR racing, Eric told me that the drivers who win races accelerate, and they do 3 things. First, they adapt to the changing conditions of the racetrack. Secondly, they test and discover the fastest lines. That is it on the high side of the track or the low side of the track where the car grips better? That is, those tires hang on to that track and so you can go faster. Third thing is, do they consistently run those lines until the conditions change again? So here's what's happening. These drivers are experimenting to find a different zone where no one else is running. If everybody's running low, they run high. If everybody's running high, they run low. They're testing the track to determine where acceleration is better. they're unafraid to drive up close to the wall and make the mistake of hitting it. Their ability to experiment, to own those mistakes and learn quickly accelerates them to the front of the pack because the conditions on the track are changing. A cloud can pass over the sun and the track cools down. The line changes, the tires grip in a different place, right? The cloud moves away, the sun comes back out. The asphalt heats up. Again, those lines can change. So these drivers are constantly learning and accelerating and consistently applying their lessons learned. Now, that consistency is really important because it's consistency over time, lap after lap after lap, and sometimes there's 500 laps, right? Consistency over time and distance wins races. It's the driver's ability to adapt and consistently apply what they learn that creates acceleration. So the 2 A's, adaptation and application over time and distance, is what wins races. Let me say that again because that's so important. Adaptation and application over time and distance wins races. You see, nobody learns when they're afraid of making a mistake. Nobody wins a race to develop talent unless they're learning. So if the people that work on your team and in your company are worried about looking stupid or getting criticized, or today, right, losing their jobs, they simply will not take the necessary risk to adapt to changing business conditions. They're going to play it safe. They're going to cover up their mistakes, kind of like a cat in a litter box, right? They're going to pretend they know things they don't know and then go try to figure it out when you're not around. If you've ever worked for a company or an organization, and it doesn't have to be the one you're working for now, that played it safe in that kind of way, where you felt like you had to hide your mistakes, drop a yes in the comments. Doesn't have to be the one you're working for now. Previous one is fine. But man, I still remember, and this was 50 years ago, close to it, maybe 45 years ago, when I worked for someone who owned a company in which I had to hide my mistakes and play it safe. And what I discovered was I couldn't hide all my mistakes. Wow, that was a difficult place to work. You know the kind of organization I'm talking about. It's an organization that finishes last while they're pretending everything's fine, right? However, when you accelerate authenticity, which is the antithesis of hiding mistakes, when you accelerate authenticity in your learn at work culture, you create psychological safety. And that is a winning foundation of trust that encourages those 2 A's, adaptation and application. Now, let's not polish it up. Real-time learning is hard, very much so. It costs because sometimes you hit the wall and that's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's dangerous if you're going really fast in your company. The people that you're leading are most likely going to choose comfort over growth whenever possible because they're afraid of running into a wall. That's how you lose the race to develop talent. Sarah Schaefer was my guest on the Work Positive podcast, and I so enjoyed interviewing her because she talked about the importance of authenticity and how we can accelerate authenticity. So let's listen to Sarah as she shares about how we can accelerate authenticity in our own work culture.
And then I've always found, especially as like a leader, when you share that authenticity and you share openly and you talk truthfully about what's going on, there's a psychological safety that you can almost, like, I can almost see people like exhale or just like, oh, we're in, oh, you know, she gets it. We're talking in reality, right? Like, we don't have to play this game of, you know, oh, nobody talk about that. Oh my God, like, you know, speak only in core values. Meanwhile, like the clinic's on fire and right fallouts and, you know.
That's right. I love it when, obviously I love talking to Sarah. She's funny. I love it when she talks about, it's almost like you see people exhale. Whew, it's okay to be human here. That's what she's talking about with accelerating authenticity. That exhale is the sound of their defenses coming down and authenticity and safety coming up. Adaptation and application are revving up and accelerating with authenticity. So that's the A in learn, accelerate authenticity. What are we doing? We're going faster in the right direction. So let me give you your accelerate authenticity, do one thing, your dot challenge. You're going to have a one-to-one with a team member sometime soon. In that one-to-one, okay, and you might have to take a deep breath before you do this. Share one mistake that you made recently and what you learned from it. I know I'm asking you to go first, but you're the leader. You're the people leader. That's part of your job, right? It's part of who you are. It's why you're the leader. Share one mistake you made recently and what you learned from it. And then after you share that, just look at them and say, how about you? What mistake have you made recently? What'd you learn from it? You'll hear an exhale. That'll be the defenses coming down. It's a simple practice, but it shifts your culture around adaptation and application with an authenticity that really accelerates the race to develop talent. Yes, it's going to take you some courage to go first, but that's okay. You can do it. World's not going to stop turning. Sky's not going to fall on your head. You're not going to crash into the wall. That's what people leaders do. So your authenticity becomes a gift that accelerates everyone else's learn at work experience. So we're using the word learn as an acronym today for how we can win the race to develop talent. The L in learn is for learn fast, speed up talent development. The E in learn is for energy flows, culture powers talent development. The A in learn is for accelerate authenticity, as we just talked about. What are we doing? We're going faster in the right direction. Now, the R in learn is one of my particular favorites, and I really enjoy helping companies make sure that their culture puts this R into practice, because what we're doing is we are reversing fear. And I'm not going to geek out on the neuroscience of what's going on in your brain, but let's just say it's fight or flight. I like a third F also, fight or flight or freeze, right? Paralysis by analysis. We're reversing fear to feed forward. So we're creating a culture in which we're making those mistakes, as we just talked about with accelerated authenticity, but we're making new mistakes faster. Now, feedback is what we so often give to our employees. And it happens in a performance review. And usually it's that thing we have to do at the end of the year, right? The companies I work with and culture architect with and consult with and coach around, most of the time their performance reviews fail miserably. First of all, nobody wants to do them. Secondly, nobody learns anything from them. Why? Because they're focused entirely on the past. It's what happened last quarter. It's what went wrong with that project 6 months ago. It's what you should have done differently. In situations that, with the fast pace of change today, those situations no longer exist because we're at a different mile marker now. There's got to be a better way. There really is a better way. So what we're going to do with Angela Cusac's help is we're going to reverse fear to feed forward instead of feeding back. Here's how Angela described it on the Work Positive podcast.
The strength to say what is so. Example would be performance situation. Top talent wants feed forward information. They don't want just feedback at the end of a week or the end of a month or the end of a quarter or, heaven forbid, the end of a year. Yeah. They want feedback live time, in the moment, in action, in a forward way. And the distinction I make is feedback tends to be more of, here's what you could have done differently. Feed forward is, hey, let's take a look at how you're engaging in your customer relationships.
Gotta love it. Now, winning NASCAR teams take feed forward to a whole new level. What they'll do is they'll go run tests or experiments on a track, and the crew chief will tell the driver during this time of experimentation, look, I know this is a crazy setup on the car, but I want you to run 5 laps as hard as you can with it. I need this for the notebook. And this was a new concept that Eric shared with me. Turns out these NASCAR teams have the notebook, and that's where all the lessons learned are kept. So the crew chief learns what direction to avoid in certain situations, and yet what may work in very different situations. So that's why all the experimentation. The worst thing that we would think would happen in NASCAR racing is it can hit a wall. But when you're experimenting, you're running test laps, it's not the worst thing because you're learning from it and you see the setup under certain conditions that caused you to hit the wall there. So then you learn how to reverse that fear of worse things. You're experimenting, you're getting that feed forward information. You learn what to do and when to do it and what not to do and when not to do it. So they're literally making mistakes intentionally in these practice laps to feed forward the results. I like the way that sounds. I don't want to be driving. I'll let Eric drive if we're going to hit the wall. But there's lots of safety equipment built in there. So it's not maybe quite as death-defying as it was 40 years ago. My Work Positive podcast guest, Rich Salon, who wrote a book with a really funny title, The 1 Minute Jerk at Work, highlighted a key part of how you as a people leader can most effectively reverse fear in a make new mistakes faster environment. Rich said to us, ask, don't tell. Let's listen to Rich describe ask, don't tell in his own words.
It's a normal tendency to tell the person what to do, define the action steps for the person, but ask more questions, ask questions of the person, let them come to the solution. I believe if they create the solution, they create the action steps, they're going to be much more inspired to move forward.
Do you hear what Rich is saying? We're back to the notebook, right? When you ask, don't tell, people create their own action steps. They're more invested in follow through. They're owning what? The lessons for the notebook because they created them. You got to love that. And so motivation is an automatic built in there. Like the crew chief, here's what you're doing. You're driving the conversations, but you're driving it through questions that spark insight rather than instructions that demand compliance. So there's a lot of great questions, you can ask. One of my favorites is, help me understand what happened there. Help me understand what happened there. We're making new mistakes faster, right? Let me give you 3 other questions. Roberta Madison was my guest on the Work Positive podcast. And this is your DOT challenge, your do one thing challenge for this reverse fear to feed forward. So Roberta suggested 3 powerful coaching questions. And here are those 3 coaching questions. I want you to make a note of these. What were your hopes and dreams when you took this job? Man, we all come in geared up. This one's going to be better than the last one. The culture, full of prospects and opportunities. What were your hopes and dreams when you took this job, right? Second question, do you still have those hopes and dreams now that you've been here for a while? Sometimes we get ground down, right? Do you still have these hopes and dreams now that you've been here? Look for an authentic assessment of that. Well, I have some of them. Really, which ones do you still have? What happened to the ones you lost? Then the third one is, once you identify those hopes and dreams that are still in place, what can I do to help you achieve these hopes and dreams? What can I do to help you achieve these hopes and dreams? And do you see the feed forward look here? We look back when they first took the job, but what we do, we quickly use that as a launch pad to jump forward. That we're reversing the current fears about making new mistakes faster back to those first dreams which emerged as they joined the team. So make new mistakes faster. I know it's a counterintuitive culture dynamic for so many of us because so many of us are importing poor work experiences from previous jobs, and the fear just moves forward and we're projecting and transferring those fears. What these 3 questions Roberta gave us do is to tap into those hopes and dreams, and it keeps us focused on the race to develop talent, right? So you're winning the race to develop talent as you create a culture in which you first, the L, learn fast. Secondly, you understand and you act on how energy flows because culture powers talent development, the E in learn. It's essential as you learn fast with greater energy flows that you go faster in the right direction. So you're accelerating authenticity, the A in learn. Then we just talked about how to re-engineer feedback and reverse fear to feed forward. And that's the R in learn. So that brings us to the step in this learn at work culture transformation process that requires you as the leader to do something different. Who best to do that but you, right? The N in lead is for need for lead. Center leaders grow on the edge. Look, I remember Top Gun. We have a need for speed, right? Okay, not exactly NASCAR racing, but we have a need for lead. And so what I want to do is encourage you and help you grow as a center leader right there on the edge. Now, you may assume that the leader of a winning NASCAR racing team is the owner. In fact, if you think that the leader of a winning NASCAR racing team is the owner, go ahead and drop a yes. If you don't, put a no, whatever your response is to that. You may assume that's the leader. If you do assume that the owner is the leader, you're wrong. More championships are won by crew chiefs than any other team position. The crew chief contributes to winning in what Tony O'Driscoll, who teaches at the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University, referred to in his Work Positive podcast episode as a center leader position. Center leaders are the folks in the middle of organizations who have the best perspective on how to propel that organization forward so it wins the race to develop talent. Let's listen to Tony describe this center leader position.
If all the people on the Planet Vanish today, there's nothing that organizations would do. They're just inert pieces of furniture or computers that, so literally humans breathe life into the organization. And I feel paradoxically that it's those that sit in the middle of the organization that are the ones that have the best perspective on how to propel the organization forward. They sit between strategy and results. They know if the strategy that's coming down from on high is not going to work before the people on high know, because they're like,
I love that when he talks about they sit between strategy and results. So think about it this way in terms of making an application in NASCAR. One side of the NASCAR team is mechanical. They're the guys who build the engine, the chassis, the brakes, and everything that's physically the car. The other side of the team is the driver, the spotter, the tire changers, others who manipulate that. Of these personnel is the owner. He and his administration take care of the things like securing, right? Securing what? Strategy like sponsorships, hiring the crew chiefs and drivers, and actually funding the enterprise. Now, the magical position of center leadership between results and strategy is where that crew chief sits. He's coordinating learning from every position through his role, where he digests all these data points. And then he acts through collaborative relationships to win. He's evaluating each lap of each race to feed forward, and he's experimenting between races. It's the crew chief, that center leader, who's assimilating all these data points and delivering strategies that promise the best results. Eric also told me how the crew chief is the one who inspires confidence in each person because of this constant evaluation, but moreover, he does it in such a human-focused way that he makes each person, at least the best crew chiefs do, he makes each person believe that I'm the best. I'm the best at what I do. And it's that winningest crew chief who leads his team from this calm, self-assured posture that repels blame and attracts maximum effort with a cooperative, or as I like to think about it, work positive dream team spirit. Tony O'Driscoll, whom we just heard from, titled his book, Everyday Superhero. I love that title because center leaders, like crew chiefs, you are a center leader, right? Have the potential to be superheroes in their organizations, not with capes and superpowers, but with small acts of leadership that create outsized impact. It's a moment of encouragement. It's a question that sparks insight. It's a decision to invest in someone's growth. These are everyday acts, but they're multiplied across the organization, and they inspire the confidence of, hey, I know I'm the best, and it creates a learn at work culture. So it's the NASCAR crew chief who's the everyday superhero, this center leader of winning race teams. And they're winning the race to develop talent from that center leadership position. And they're inspiring confidence for success. So how do you do that? Well, let me give you your need for lead, do one thing challenge. Tomorrow morning, before you check your email or review your to-do list, I want you to ask yourself a question. What will I do today to help someone on my team learn and grow? What will I do today to help someone on my team learn and grow? Maybe it can be asking a powerful question like the ones we just talked about. Maybe it's sharing a mistake you made and what you learned. Maybe it's sitting with someone and working through a situation together. Maybe it's just simply saying, hey, I don't know. Let's figure this out together. Well, whatever it is, just do it. Do that something tomorrow morning, and then do it the next day and the next day. You see, a learn at work culture in which you win the race to develop talent builds through small actions like that, consistently taken by leaders just like you, who know that growing people also grows profits. Now, what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity to list a key takeaway there in the comments section. Which one of these did you get the most from? Do you think that you can adapt most quickly into your own culture? Is it the L for learn fast, the E for energy flows, the A for accelerate authenticity, the R for reverse fear to feed forward, or the N for the need for lead? Just drop that letter into the comments there, the L, the E, the A, the R, the N, the one that provided you with the most key takeaways today. So I promised you 2 free gifts. I know we're about out of time, but let me give you those 2 free gifts quickly. This little book, Learn at Work, The Race to Develop Talent, that is right now sitting at #1 in 3 different Amazon categories, all about human resources, is yours free today. I can't promise you that it'll be free if you're watching this recording, but I can promise you that it's free today live. And that's one of the things we do, especially for the Work Positive community each and every month, is to make our little book live. Free Kindle copies available right now. Go to Amazon and you'll find it. In the comments, I think we're going to drop a URL for you there so that you can have it to click on right now if you want to. If it's no longer free on Kindle, though, just connect with me and message me on LinkedIn and just say, hey, Dr. J, I want that Learn at Work book. Hook me up. I want a free digital copy, and we'll message you back on LinkedIn with that. Also, if you will go to workpositive.today, we will help you discover which mile marker, where you are in the race to develop talent, because we've got a free culture assessment there based on what I've discovered in my over 40 years of experience and working with amazing people like the ones that we've heard from today. We've got an assessment there. It's only 13 questions. It takes you about 3 minutes to do it. So you're more than happy to go to workpositive.today and to find yourself where you are on your particular culture assessment right there. Okay. So you see that there. Let me see. We've got Eric's talking about relationship with the team. Yeah. Energy does drive them, doesn't it, man? That is so important. Thanks for that key takeaway. Oh, you were in Hickory? Man, that's a beautiful neck of the woods. That really is nice. Let's see. Kim Ritter. I thought I saw a comment from Kim. Here it is. Oh, your parents lived in Hickory. Oh, you lived in Indy, Kim? You know a little bit about racing. Okay, I didn't ask you any questions. Is that okay? Kim, I knew I didn't know, so that's why I connected up with Eric. And Eric, I want to thank you again, man, for being such an awesome part of what we're able to do and to share with people here. Go get yourself a free copy of this little book, Learn at Work, today, right now on Kindle. If you're watching the recording, just know that it's still available to you free. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn and message me. Each and every month, I am so excited and ecstatic about sharing this time with you. So thank you. Thank you to Kim for her comments. Thank you to Eric for joining me live. Be sure to see the Alcova Mortgage URL there. And through that, you can reach out to Eric and get to know him personally. Just an amazing individual. Please go win the race to develop talent, because the companies that win this race to develop talent, the companies that learn at work today, are the ones who are going to be here in 5 or 10 years as AI continues to assault all of us, right? And to become a great tool for us to use. I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett. Thank you so much. May you work positive for the rest of this day and for the rest of your work life. I'm so grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett, or you can click the link in your show notes. When you send your connection request, mention you're a Work Positive Podcast listener, because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. It's a $19.95 value, but I want to share it with you free because it contains practical strategies that I personally use with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore in that book how to create a positive work culture, and we do so again in every episode of this podcast. Our LinkedIn connection allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges, so feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I personally read and respond to all those messages because I genuinely care about your work positive success. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.